What is yoga? Yoga simply means yoking. And if we're going to look scientifically at what needs yoking in a person, we have to go beyond talking about things as nebulous as souls and super souls. We have to take a look at what's going on in the brain. Now, what is going on in the brain in this case? Something very simple. Communication between our emotional aspects of the brain, the limbic system and so on, and our reflective abilities. The mirror neurons that help us with empathy, and the ability to be objective, and the ability to be creative, which tends to be a little bit more pictorial or right brain. But let's not fall into any simplistic traps. The brain is pretty well integrated, and one part can take over the job of another at times. But still, there is a communication necessary between that part of us that feels the drama of life. Let us call that the soul. The part of us that directly experiences life, or feels that he or she is directly experiencing life. Caught up in the drama. Caught up in the survival. Now, that part of ourselves is educated by empathy, which helps us with goodness, and objectivity, which helps us with real truth, not just what comforts us, but scientific facts. And it comforts, it does, however, comfort in a certain way, because it gets you outside of yourself. Then there's the creative. And creativity is very important because it's where you're able to see things from many different perspectives. And then also find yourself able to see the beauty and the patterns all around you, within others, and between yourself and others and all things. So this gives us the virtue of art. Now, it's this artist in you, it's personified for the sake of explaining. This artist in you can be seen as your higher self. Let that be your super soul. And it reaches into your dramatic life in the two ways that reflection does help you to deal with stresses in your daily life. And those are empathy and objectivity. Empathy helps us to deal with things that have already happened, more so, because it takes empathy to heal the past and to lower those anxieties. So it's the present looking into the past and back again. The communication between oneself, I call the empathy, and the dramatic self, or let us call that the kid in you, the caregiver. So that's a dialogue between the caregiver and you and the kid. Now the other dialogue that's within your survival timeline is how you deal with the future. How you deal with the anxieties there. And that's mainly something that objectivity helps you with. so that you can decide the best way to go forward, and through that understanding gain a certain kind of comfort there as well. And so let us just imagine for a moment that the artist in you, being above your timeline, is in a place where the past, the future, and the present all mingle together, and in which you are kind of transcendent to time. That seems to follow with the experiences of the mystics. Now, when you have this communication between these two other aspects in your timeline, you lower your anxieties, and when you lower those anxieties, you become less time conscious. You are more at play in your life, more free. And in that state, it's easier to relate to that higher self in you, that creative perspective. And how does that creative perspective view you and your life in your daily drama? Well, it's a great story, no matter how you look at it, no matter what's going on or what you did or will do or are doing. It's a great story and enjoyable from that perspective. And who are you? Well, you are not. That core of you is that person experiencing all of these things. And that person can be seen like a hero or a heroine. And this inner hero is struggling against the things that threaten its survival and the survival of those that they love and so on, and the world which they love. This experience, that is a struggle. And in that struggle, you are struggling against those things which threaten yourself and these other things. And you're also struggling against the darkness in you. And this is where it begins to sound very spiritual. Where does that darkness come from? The things that motivate us beyond our self-control. Well, let's not say it's demons possessing you. I don't adhere to that idea. But it is damaged faith and love. Let me explain. Where helplessness touches your needs, and that's very traumatic. And it's brought about by trauma and deprivation, which is another kind of trauma. And helplessness is not something any mammal can stand. It's something that is automatically changed in your mind to a struggle or a perspective that you seem to have more control over. This is a source of addictions, because you can't fill up on symbols. So there's your neurotic struggle. You're struggling for symbols of the need instead of the real thing. So you're never satisfied. And so you suffer from greed or addiction. It never solves the puzzle or the problem. So your anxieties continue forever. You're always defending against the same inner fears, and always addicted to searching for those things that are safe to search for, that don't so tinged with helplessness. Okay, well, how do you get over that? Well, it's not your choice. You don't get over it by an act of will. Does this sound like grace? Yeah. The love has to be surprising. And then those defenses against feeling what was once unbearable to feel drop. And the feelings that are able to be felt should begin to come forth. And those need to be integrated with a safe sense of the present, of course. Now, when you integrate in this way, well, you're going to need other people, because you can't just surprise yourself. Gee, I saw that coming. Well, no. So that's why I'm a big fan of primal therapy, because that provides a way a systematic way and a safe way for people to be surprised and to be touched when their defenses are just at the right point, and allow those feelings of helplessness and need to rise and be expressed and made conscious. Okay, but how do you do if you don't have that privilege? Well, you have to wear down the defenses. And this is where these things I'm talking about come into play. There are verbal techniques which involve a kind of communication between yourself and your empathy, your objectivity, and your creativity. 3 dialogues. And you just keep doing those over and over, shifting from one to another. And after a while, the defenses wear down, and certain feelings start to come up. Now, yes, there's a danger with doing it yourself, in that you can, if you're not actually wearing things down, if you're just trying to use your willpower and remember something and start making emotional expression from it, that is not going to heal you. It has to be an actual reliving. And if you don't hit reliving, you are helping your defense system to become even more intricate and complicated, which makes it hard for the people giving you therapy. You've just complicated the issue. Now you can do that. As you go a little further, you will find there are ways to connect to that kind of helplessness which is wordless terror. But I highly recommend having someone to help you if you're going there. But these techniques are things that you hear a lot about in yoga. Yes, you can use the breath to connect to those feelings. You can use anything that obfuscates or removes a sense of language communication, which would be, repeating a chant over and over again until there's no meaning to it, or like some people just create sounds, by being more creative, making it sound like language, even though it's not. That will also short-circuit the language activity and bring up those pre-verbal things that you need to integrate. The other approach is simply to be aware of your physical sensations and feelings and emotions, and just watch the kind of a Buddhist kind of approach almost. you're watching these things. As you continue to watch or you focus on any feeling or sensation, your mind actually wants to move away. And so it can lead to some relaxation, and an ability to deal with pain. However, with any of these practices, you don't want to do them all by themselves. They're more like salt and pepper on your food. I would not recommend doing those things alone. And do be careful as you make this progress. And of course, I think it's the duty of every one of us to try. But as you make this progress and take this journey, know when you've had enough. Your dreams can tell you. If you're having a dream where there's no people in it, oh, guess where that's coming from. Things that were once without words. Helplessness without words is wordless terror. If you're having nightmares, well, it's probably got people in it. Not so frightening. But if you're having night terrors, that's where there's a lot of symbology about death, or there's no people in it, and you're just very frightened. So when you start to have those kind of dreams, back off. Take it easy on yourself. Now, okay, how do you do that? Well, there's different things. One thing that can help is simply focusing on the dialogue between yourself and your director, your objective adult person in you, and the kid in you, and just comfort yourself that way, and that will keep emotions from you. It'll help you not fall into the feelings, but just to deal with them and move on. That can be helpful. Some people that are really being blown away might turn to their religions or whatever and have a sense of that creative perspective. That can be helpful. But going after that initially, a little cautious. I'd be a little cautious about that. But for some people, it works. Remember, you are a unique person. So what works for somebody else may not work for you. Make sure that it works for you. And if you're feeling nervous or unsettled, that's not for you. When you fall into a feeling, it just happens automatically. And there's not even time to think about it in order to be anxious. You just fall into it, you feel some of it, and you feel better. If it doesn't go like that, you're probably trying too hard. You're using willpower. And willpower doesn't get it. You have to be surprised, or you have to purposely wear down the defenses. In some circumstances with a loss in your family or something, some people talk to the deceased. That's kind of like the communication between yourself and empathy. Yourself and the caregiver. And with that, of course, the practice is to talk to people you care about or who care about you. It's much more social, and it's much closer to your feelings than the director and the kid. And so maybe you need that. But I would use one of the techniques and not all three of them going round and round, because That's for an intensive. You're getting comfortable with the whole thing and you can do all of it at the same time. Okay. But what's your dreams? If you're not having any dreams, take that as a caution. Back off until you do have the right level where there's going to be some dreaming occasionally that you're aware of without forcing yourself. Can healing happen in dreams? Yes, it can. For some people, anyway. Now, there's an overall journey involved here, but before I state that again, which I've said so many times, let me say that understanding these things means that you don't believe in punishment. You come not to believe. It's not an act of will to be a better person. It's involved with these processes. And I've seen people to change without these processes. Well, you might get someone who acts better, but you're not going to get somebody who is better, who is more connected. Connections aren't there, they're just putting on an act. So this is what we're getting in our penal systems. And because everybody's so neurotic, you also see abuses of all kinds taking place with this kind of punishing attitude. And the abuse is on all sides, just as you might expect. So we're talking about a fundamental change in society, not just in ourselves, but in society at large. And a society that isn't into blaming. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. What do you know? Echoes of someone enlightened. Well, it's, you don't have to believe anything to practice these sort of things. It's unnecessary. You just have to practice. And you find what you find. And you express it as you will, but remember others will express it differently. And you can go to the mountain, but telling people about it just isn't the same as taking them there. Just try to remember that. What is the process of change? Well, consider that this damaged faith in love, this helplessness, you have to feel it in order to unlearn the helplessness, in order to see what really happened to you and to know what you really lost, what the real needs were. And once you know that, then you have the capacity to grieve that loss and let it go. What do you know? There's a nice pause for you. Then that clock is wrong. But anyway, when you know what you've lost, well, there's only, it's in degrees. You know some of what you lost. And you can grieve some of what you lost and let it go. And then you were able to forgive those involved with those things, including yourself. And after you have forgiven, then an amazing thing can happen. You are able to see what you did to hurt others because of your blindness, because of your helplessness, your damaged faith. After you see that, which is the hardest thing of all to feel, because it means we're social animals, and that means ostracization. That means you feel ostracized. But it's a very terrifying thing for a social animal. So that's the last thing that you're able to feel. So you don't push people to feel that right away. Don't you see what you did? No, they don't, or they wouldn't have done it. Probably. So you get them to the right point, then they will see what they've done. And once they have felt what they've done, well, guess what? They will feel remorse, true remorse, and for those things. And the beautiful thing is that when they feel that remorse, they are no longer the person who did those things. And this is how we evolve. We have to allow other people to evolve. We got to give people chances. And even the most damaged among us are valuable as challenges to our own growth. That is a society that is more free of drama. That is a society that is more at peace and more on the proper trajectory of progress. Keep heart. Keep your mind clear. And challenge what you believe. Look at things in lots of different perspectives and follow the path. As Jesus said, if you would follow me, take up your cross. He didn't say his, your own. Because you have to feel that hurt, that damaged faith and love before the light can shine in. And when you're done with the process, then you can follow the path of greater love. And as your anxieties close at any moment into a sense of peace, you are in heaven. And in delight. You have found the creative, the artist within you. That part of you that you are, and that part of you that looks upon that. the midst of your drama. Aham Brahmasmi, a phrase in the Vedas that means you are one with the artist, and the artist is one with you. When you have that, even for a moment, you found heaven. You found real satisfaction. May this gift live in you but remember, the gift was always inside of you. As the Buddha said, it's like someone bemoaning that he is so poor and wearing a coat that his father has sown great riches into, unknowingly, unknown by the sun. Right? So the man walking around thinking he's poor, he's not really. You're not poor in spirit. You're rich. You just have to realize that. So realize that and live the gift that you are. And find your heaven. The word that means all of that and more is namaste. Namaste. Good evening, good day. Have a wonderful life.